On today's edition of Early Look, I'm going to be previewing the women's bantamweight title fight, which now features bantamweight champion Amanda Nunes defending her title now against Irene Aldana, replacing Juliana Pena. And this is going to be headlining the UFC Vancouver card, UFC 289, June 10th. I like this fight a lot better. I've talked about this before. This is a fresh matchup. A lot of the Mexican fighters have been doing quite well lately, so very intrigued by this matchup, and we're going to get into it. If you haven't seen the show before, I'm going to go through a bunch of different stats, a bunch of different intangibles, and then I'll give you my pick at the end. Some of this stuff may have relevance, it may not, but I like to look at every little angle when it comes to breaking down fights. Let's do a quick tail of the tape here. Amanda Nunes will be 35 by the time she fights Irene Aldana, so they're the same age. 5'8" to 5'9", 69 to 68.5, so physically pretty similar here. Nunes has more experience, but they're around, well, they are the same age, so that's kind of interesting here as well. And yeah, really interesting matchup here. So let's start first with Amanda Nunes. If you watched my breakdown already of the previously scheduled Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena trilogy, I'm not going to go over too much stuff that I went over in that one because I don't think there's anything real new to add. I don't want to bore the people who are watching this either. So just quickly, Amanda Nunes, you can see there, 35, 5'8" with a 69-inch reach. She has a 0.5 reach advantage in this fight. She's the UFC featherweight and bantamweight champion. She's the first women's 2-division champion, and she's got a BJJ black belt and a brown belt in judo. She's got 13 knockouts, 4 submissions, and 5 decisions. She's got a 15-2 UFC record. She's got 10 stoppage victories. Some notable wins include Irene Aldana, Valentina Shevchenko, twice Miesha Tate, Ronda Rousey, Chris Cyborg, Holly Holm, and Juliana Pena. Some notable losses that she's had are Juliana Pena and Kat Zingano. That's it. She's had a couple layoffs in her career. We'll mention those. Going from the first Durandamy fight to Kat Zingano, there was a 325-day layoff. Going from Ronda Rousey to Valentina Shevchenko, there was a 253-day layoff. Going from Shevchenko to Raquel Pennington, there was a 245-day layoff. Going from Felicia Spencer to Megan Anderson, there was a 273-day layoff. Going from the first Pena fight to the second one, there was a 231-day layoff. And then going from Pena to Pena, and then going from Pena to Aldana is a 315-day layoff. So yeah, she hasn't fought since July. So yeah, it's been a bit of a layoff coming into this one as well. She had a couple injuries in her career, a couple things that we should mention. I was going to say USADA, but not USADA. It's just I put that in my notes as far as injuries in USADA. Supposed to fight Sarah Kaufman in April of 2014. You can see here, didn't end up happening. She had an injury. Supposed to fight Valentina Shevchenko the second time at UFC. Supposed to fight Valentina Shevchenko on UFC 213. She ends up getting an illness, so she was out of that fight. And then supposed to fight Felicia Spencer. Had to withdraw from that fight, not injury related. Then had a undisclosed thing against Megan Anderson back in December. She had to withdraw from that fight. And then she had COVID the first time the Pena fight was scheduled, tested positive for COVID in that fight as well. Nunes has only really had one close fight in her career. That was the second fight with Valentina Shevchenko. She won by split decision. 10 media members scored the fight for Nunes, 2 scored it a draw, and 10 scored it for Shevchenko. So again, a lot of people feeling like maybe that should have been a loss for Nunes, but very, very close fight nonetheless. Let's go through a couple of the stats for Amanda Nunes, like we usually do here. Nunes, you can see here, has a significant strikes landed per minute is at 4.40. She's got significant striking accuracy at 51%. Her takedown or striking defense is at 55%. Average takedowns landed per 15 minutes is 2.61. Her takedown defense accuracy is at 82%, and her takedown defense is at 82%. So yeah, a lot of good stats there for Nunes. Again, 22-5 record, and outside of the one loss against Juliana Pena, she's looked outstanding. So yeah, Amanda Nunes, that's everything you need to know. Let's get to her opponent here, Irene Aldana. Interesting challenger. If you remember, Aldana was kind of supposed to fight Nunes not that long ago, but obviously she lost to Holly Holm. We'll talk about that in a sec. But Aldana, you can see there, 14-6 record, 8 knockouts, 3 submissions, 3 decisions. She's 35 years old, 5'9" with a 69-inch reach. She'll be 1 inch taller in this fight. She's the number 5 ranked UFC women's bantamweight, trains at a Lobo's gym, which is where Alexa Grasso trains. She's got fight of the night 2 times against Leslie Smith and Lucy Pudilova. She's got performance of the night 2 times against Ketlin Vieira and Macy Chasson. Aldana, like Nunes, did not have an amateur debut. She made her MMA debut in October of 2012. Nunes at that point had 9 fights, so a bit of an experience gap there. She did not make her UFC debut until December of 2016, which she ended up losing. Nunes had 7 UFC fights at that point. Aldana's UFC record actually isn't that great, but again, you got to look at who she's fought. She's actually 7-4. She's got 4 stoppage wins. Some notable wins she's had in her career: Betch Correia former title challenger, had a win over her. Ketlen Vieira, who was undefeated at the time. That was a big upset, if you remember. Vieira looked like she was on her way to fighting for the title. And Aldana just knocks her out of nowhere. I was at that card. That was crazy. That was the first Usman-Covington fight. And then obviously Yana Santos, who I believe was ranked as well, got a first round finish in that one. That was extremely impressive. And then some notable losses she's had. I mentioned Leslie Smith, not really notable, but got to mention that too. Caitlin Chukagian, that was a split decision. Raquel Pennington, that was a split decision. And then a unanimous decision against Holly. Like, had she beat Holly, she would have got the title shot back then, but she didn't end up winning that fight. She's only had one layoff. That was the fight from going from Chukagian to Bernardo. There was a 281-day layoff. Other than that, she's been pretty active. The only fight that I know of that she withdrew from was the Aspen Ladd fight, which, you know, looking back now, how that fight would have gone probably very well for Aldana. She had an arm injury in that fight. That was back in April of 2022, so they didn't end up fighting. But yeah, that's the only time she's had to withdraw from a fight due to injury. Let's talk about some of her close fights. I mentioned those split decisions. So the Caitlin Chukagian fight, I was at that card. That was the Cormier-Johnson card in Buffalo. Split decision loss there. Went back and looked at the media scorecards for that one. 7 media members scored the fight for Chukagian. 10 media members scored the fight for Irene Aldana. So if that goes Aldana's way, you know, again, maybe she's getting this title opportunity a little bit sooner. Then she fought Lucy Pudilova. That was another close fight. That was a split decision win for her. UFC 228, September of 2018. 12 media members scored the fight for Aldana. 5 scored it for Pudilova. So again, people felt like she did win the fight, but do got to point out that some people also felt like Pudilova had the edge in that one. And then, of course, the Raquel Pennington fight, split decision loss there. UFC on ESPN 4, July 2019. 10 media members scoring the fight for Raquel Pennington, 4 scoring it for Aldana. So that was a loss she probably did deserve based off who the media scored the fight for. And a couple quick stats here for Irene Aldana. Let's go through them. Significant strikes landed per minute is 5.39, which I actually think is higher than Nunes. I think Nunes was only in the 4s there. Yeah. Nunes is Nunes is at 4.40. Aldana actually is at 5.39, so a bit of a difference there. But the striking accuracy, listen to this, 39%. So not that great. She throws a lot, but doesn't hit a lot. Her striking defense is at 60%, which is great. Average takedowns landed per 15 minutes for Aldana is 0.20. Takedown defense accuracy, the accuracy that she gets in her takedowns is at 50%, and her takedown defense is at 81%. So we'll see if Nunes is able to get her to the floor. Let's have a quick look at the odds here. We don't have a ton of books here, but as you would imagine, Amanda Nunes is a big favorite here, minus 400, which is interesting. And, you know, if you're on the Nunes side, I always tell you this, make the bet now, because the line's only going to go up. We see this with Valentina Shevchenko. We see this with Amanda Nunes. Typically come fight time, she's, you know, closer to like a minus 1,000 around there. So minus 400, if you like the Nunes side, might be the time to get to it. So let's talk about a few things, and I'll give you my pick. Okay, so first and foremost, people bringing up the Pena loss. I remember a lot of people after that Pena fight said Amanda Nunes is done. She's focusing on her family, all these different things. I think people forgetting that first fight with Juliana Pena. She won the first round. Pena was on her back most of the first round. So that's one thing that people sort of gloss over. And the other thing in that Pena loss as well is that Nunes gassed out in the second round. We've never seen her do that, really. Right? She's gone 5 rounds. So cardio is not an issue for her. I think there was some truth to the fact that she was still dealing with COVID. And I think she proved that in the second fight. And that's something I talked about in the breakdown with Pena before she got injured, is that a lot of people saying, like, you know, Pena had her number the first time. Well, I think Nunes had an off night. I think we can all agree with that, because in the rematch with Pena, Nunes dominated. Pena wasn't in that fight at all. I didn't even give a single round to Juliana Pena in their rematch. And I think had the trilogy happen, I think Nunes would have done something similar in the rematch in the trilogy fight. But this is a totally different ballgame. You look at Aldana, a couple things that you got to like about her. Again, she's got some power. She knocked out Ketlen Vieira. She knocked out Yana Santos. A nice up kick to the liver on Macy Chasson. She has a bit of power. That's not something you see with a lot of the women's fighters, right? Typically, a lot of them go the distance. Two of her losses, well, one of them for sure should have been hers, the Chukagian loss. Leslie Smith, will cut her some slack. I think she's a lot better fighter than she was back in 2016. The only fight she's really lost, like, decisively, was Holly Holm. Even the Raquel Pennington fight was a split, but Holly Holm, you know, definitely had her number in that one. I think that was an off night for Aldana, because outside of that, she's looked great. And again, that Ketlen Vieira fight, that win has aged very well considering what Vieira has done since then. So I'm not going to completely count out Aldana in this fight. I think the odds are kind of where they need to be, but like I said, I think the odds will go up a little bit more. But you got to pick Nunes here. You do. Again, there's been one bad fight. I don't want to hear people talk about the fact that she lost to Kat Zingano like ages ago. She lost to Kat Zingano back in 2014. Nunes is nowhere near that fighter anymore. She's a much more polished version. I do realize that Nunes is getting up there. She's starting a family. She's been doing some things outside the cage. That is a bit concerning, but I don't think she showed any of that in the Pena rematch. I think she still showed that she's competing at a very high level. I think Irene Aldana is a better fighter than Juliana Pena, so I do expect this fight to be a little bit closer, but I think ultimately Nunes is, I think she's better in the stand-up. I think she's better ground game, and I think we've seen her, perform well over 5 rounds. So I don't think Nunes will finish this fight. I think she wins a decision. Would it surprise me if Irene Aldana pulled this one off? Absolutely not. I'm definitely not counting with the Mexican fighters anymore. I mean, we saw what Grasso did, but I think that the rematch with Juliana Pena showed that Nunes is still at a high level. And if that version of Nunes shows up in the Pena rematch as she does in this fight, I think she wins this no problem. So I'm going to go Amanda Nunes by decision to bring down the juice a little bit. I'm not sure what type of odds you'll get. I don't think we have the props out yet. But if you look at Nunes traditionally, at least recently, I should say, a lot of decisions wins here. I mean, Megan Anderson, forget about that. That was a mismatch. But Felicia Spencer, you look at GDR, Holly Holm. Yeah, there was a first round finish, but Holm was a bit of an aging fighter. Cyborg, same thing, a little bit older. Yeah, I see this being pretty competitive, but I do see Nunes, edging this one out. So I'm going to go Amanda Nunes by decision to get it done in the main event of UFC 289. So I want to know what you guys think in the comments section below. Who are you picking in this fight? How do you think they get it done? Would love to get your thoughts on that. And if there's any other fights you want me to preview that are coming up, just let me know in the comments. More than happy to hear your feedback and everything else. And that's about it. Yeah, make sure you follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. It's all the same handle. I'm James Lynch. This was another edition of Early Look. I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys soon.